Hey guys, Hideous here with a game review. We're looking at Urgot mid in Silver 5. This game we're going to be talking a lot about general decision making, calculating risk versus reward and expected outcomes, and we're also going to be looking at some Urgot specific tips in this matchup. Okay, so right off the bat we have a number of issues. You choose to do a jungle invade with a few members of your team, and I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the decision making that leads to that jungle invade, because there's principles involved that apply to the entire game. I'll also talk a bit about the execution of this specific invade and how it could have gone better. Okay, so the first thing to understand is a pretty basic principle. People who are good at League are good at weighing risk versus reward and at calculating expected outcomes. They can look at a situation and quickly determine what action would result in the highest reward with the least amount of risk. Smart players resist the urge to take high-risk plays if they don't need to, waiting for the right opportunity to make a high-impact play. So, level 1 invades are inherently high risk. You're in enemy territory without vision control, you're far away from the safety of your turrets, and you usually don't have much information on the positioning of the enemy team. So the minute you decide to invade, you're making a high-risk play. It might still be worth it, but only if the rewards are good enough. So let's use this game as an example of what I mean. Right off the bat, the odds are against you in this invade. You're crossing into enemy territory. If you get spotted or caught out, you have a long way to run to safety. The clock is ticking as well. If you're not able to get in and get out with what you came for, you risk putting your whole squad behind by being late to lane. On top of that, you have no knowledge of where the enemy team is. For all you know, they're stacked up as 5 in the blue bush waiting for you to walk up. Now, in a second here, you do check the brush with your Q, but if there had been 2 or 3 people in there, you would have been in a lot of trouble. So, like most jungle invades, this starts off as a bad idea. And while in some games there might be other factors that would turn it into a good idea, in this game things just get worse. So problem number 1 is a lack of vision. And that's honestly the biggest risk factor of invading in general. You don't have any idea where the enemy team is most of the time. And all 3 of you have a free tool that can mitigate that problem in a big way, but you're the only one that uses it. And I'm glad that you do. That's a sign that you're a smarter player than either of the 2 teammates that you have with you here. But by the time you throw it down, it's already almost 30 seconds after the warding trinket goes active, and you place it in kind of a suboptimal position here. The biggest thing that you need information on is whether or not Azir is going to be collapsing on you. You need to cover your escape more than anything. And you could have thrown a ward down in this brush, like right on this corner, or down in here if you want to cover the river a little more. This would have been the optimal ward position, because that gives you knowledge if Azir is coming through here, like he is right now. And as a side note, the enemy team isn't warding either. They're just as blind as you are, and at this level of play, that's typical. It's extremely easy to be above average in your vision game in Bronze and Silver. It's probably the simplest, highest impact thing you can do to improve your game and climb. Vision is knowledge, knowledge is power, and power wins games. Since they aren't warding at all, I mean, they threw one down eventually, but it's only after they knew that you were there. If they aren't warding at all, and your team throws down 2 or 3 wards in their jungle as you go in, that's an incredibly large advantage you have over them. As you climb and your enemies get better, you'll have to step your game up still more to stay ahead in the vision game. But in Bronze and Silver, it's pretty easy, even if you're the only one warding well, to create a significant and meaningful vision advantage for your team. Okay, so let's go back a little bit and look at the second problem here with this invade. So, if the primary goal of an invade is to get your jungler ahead, this invade is a bad idea. Lee is a strong early champion, but you're up against Nunu. You can't smite steal from a Nunu. He has consume. If he times it right, consume and his smite will always out-smite your Lee. There's no way you can just steal his buff and get out. So the only way that you can make this jungle invade a success is if you kill him, or kill somebody at least, or get him low enough that he has to leave his jungle, and that will allow you to steal his buff without his interference, right? So you're in a position where you have to kill or force Nunu out of the jungle. So in a level 1 fight, the biggest factor of who is going to win a level 1 fight like that is which team has more CC to bring to bear. So on their team, they've got Graves with no meaningful CC, especially at level 1. He has a small slow and a smoke screen, but he's not going to have that at level 1 in all likelihood. Azir doesn't have any real CC at level 1, doesn't have any CC at level 1. Mundo has his cleaver, which is a slow, but again, not really hard CC. Nunu, if he's level Snowball, which he almost certainly will not, is a slow but not that's soft CC. The hard CC on their team is Volibear, right? He's got his flip if he levels it first, which he does end up doing. So what about your team? No CC, no CC. Well, she has her slows, I guess, and her choppers. So depending on if she levels choppers, then maybe. Lee has no real CC. You have no real CC at this point in the game. But then there's Thresh. Thresh is a really high impact CC player. Yeah, if you can get Thresh in on this business, you can probably lock somebody down hard enough, if he plays it right, to really hurt them. If Jinx were to level Chompers and you have Thresh in the game, you could probably lock Nunu down long enough to at least force him out of the jungle. But you don't have Thresh with you. Thresh is late. He's AFK in base. He doesn't even start buying items for another couple of seconds. But you guys go in anyway. Honestly, you're bringing a knife to a gunfight here. You need CC to win a level 1 fight, and they're the only ones with CC nearby. In this kind of situation, if you had Thresh with you, this invade might have been a good idea. You probably could have won a level 1 fight, even if it was 4v4, if you had Thresh with you. But you don't have Thresh with you. And as soon as you realize that Thresh was not with you, you should have called off the invade. Spam back pings and just go to lane. It's not worth it. Okay, so issue number 3, and I've backed up here a few seconds so we can watch it happen. So, as I already discussed, we're in a situation where you can't outsmite Nunu, so you're not just going to steal his buff. You can't win a level 1 fight, assuming that everyone plays their teams correctly, because you don't have your number 1 level 1 fight winner with you, but you choose to go in anyway. So you're only, if you choose to go ahead with this invade, and to be clear, you should not, but you do, and so I want to talk about what you can do in a situation where you find yourself like this. If you wanted to have success with this, your only real shot is to just sit in a brush and hope that somebody walks by close enough for you to murder, right? So you're going to try to fanatic bush them, and that's kind of what you guys do. You walk up into this brush, you check it with your Q, and you all are just going to sit there. So if Nunu or someone was to just kind of wander by this brush, maybe you could do enough damage to him and surprise attack him, but look at that. Jinx is not on the same page with you. She does not realize that has to be that's the only way that you can have any success with this invade. For some reason, she steps out and fires a zap, in which no universe is that ever going to result in any positive effect. So she gives you guys away, and you have to leave. Obviously, you can't control what Jinx does, so this is not really a criticism leveled at your play, but it demonstrates the chaos of solo queue, right? Of getting several strangers on the internet to coordinate to successfully pull off something as delicate as a level 1 jungle invade. It's difficult to do. You can talk in chat and try to mitigate some of that, perhaps, and get people somewhat on the same page, but anytime you're trying to pull off something complicated like this in solo queue, you're already rolling the dice. So in this jungle invade, you guys do manage to get out pretty much scot-free, and with enough time for Lee to still get bot lane and start his Krugs on time without really losing anything, and that's incredibly lucky. You guys get off with almost taking no consequences for this invade, and that's good. I'm glad that happened for you, but it could have just as easily gone terribly. If this team had been a little more coordinated, if they had warded one of the entrances, if if they had decided to go more aggressive, anything, it's just a gigantic roll of the dice, because they end up messing up just as much as you guys do, basically, and that allows you to get off pretty much scot-free. Okay, so let's go back and talk about this big picture again. What we're doing right now is we're calculating expected result. Is this jungle invade likely to result in the risk or the reward side of the equation? If Thresh was with you, it could probably be tilted toward the reward side. Your team would be a little bit stronger than theirs, level 1, with Thresh with you. But since he's not there, the odds of success plummet. And then that's made worse by the fact that you guys don't ward, and Jinx decides to be a spaz and step out of bush randomly. The odds of this going well are extremely unlikely. And that's where a smart player just calls it off. The penalties for failure are as strong as the rewards for success would be, and since failure is much more likely, you don't do it. Just go to lane and wait for a better opportunity to get a leg up on your opponent. So I spent a long time talking about that, but I felt like it was important to clearly explain the thought process that you should be adopting. Evaluating risk versus reward and calculating expected outcomes are things that you'll need to be doing all the time, not just during a jungle invade. You'll win more games as you get better at taking fewer risks than your opponent, and thereby making fewer mistakes. Okay, so as we move into early lane phase, we're going to look at that risk-reward situation almost immediately here. So you're not really thinking this matchup through, and that's possibly because you don't know Urgot's kit very well, or maybe because you're not used to coming into lane with a specific plan of action to win. You use up a lot of mana early on farming. Urgot has an oppressive level 3 power spike, and Riot gates that power by giving him high mana costs. You use your Q a few times to farm, and then you miss your E. That leaves you with only about a third of your mana pool, which means Azir can pretty much breathe easy. A level 3 Urgot with full mana is extremely dangerous in lane, but with only a third of his mana, he can pretty much be ignored. Moving forward a few seconds here, we can see why. You land a solid E onto Azir, but look at your mana pool. You only have enough mana for a couple of Acid Hunters, and that's if you don't use your W, which is your most powerful CC tool in keeping people in range to keep bombing them. You have enough mana for your W and 2 Acid Hunters, and then you're done. That's not enough to kill Azir or force him out of lane, even if he just stands and eats at all. He has a full mana bar and a full health bar at the beginning of this trade. If he's smart, he baits you out into lane so you're taking minion aggro, and then he turns and trades on you really hard. He probably can't kill you, but he can definitely win the trade if he plays it right. Now, he doesn't recognize this, and you aren't really punished for forcing the bad trade. But that doesn't mean you were right. So I want to look at and see what we could have set up here. Let's go back. Okay, look at Lee's position. He's finishing Scuttle Crab. You know he's right there. You can take a quick glance at him. He has high health. He is in position to help to come gank for you. If you had held on to your mana earlier and not farmed with your Q quite so much, you would be about probably 3/4 mana right now. And that's enough to do a full trade and still have some to spare. So you see Lee here. You see that Azir is pushing in because he has more minions than you. And now you know you're about ready to spring your trap. You can call for Lee to come gank. You hold on and you wait until Lee is in position to do that. Now you're not calling for him, and so Lee starts going top, and then he sees you going aggressive, and he turns around to come help you. If you had waited until Lee was here to land that E, and just held on to the cooldown because you knew that was coming on, and you had more mana from not farming with your Q early, or even earlier, you hit him with the E, you pop your W, you start bombing him with Acid Hunters. That slows him, which makes Lee's Sonic Wave super easy to hit. And between the two of you, you at least blow his flash. And that's the kind of thing that you want to be doing. You want to be setting your opponent up, and you want to be maneuvering your lane opponent into unwinnable situations without letting him know that that's what's happening. You're saving your cooldowns, you're saving your mana for the highest impact situation that you can use them in. Looking at the map, watching your jungler, being mindful of where their jungler likely is, controlling minion waves, all of these things working together so that Azir is maneuvering himself into a position where he is extremely vulnerable to your CC and Lee's gank, and he's not even aware that that's happening with him. That kind of planning is the result of calculating your outcomes for every use of a spell. Even more minutely, of every auto attack. You can get really nitty gritty with this. Why am I auto attacking this minion right now? Is it furthering my goals? Why am I casting my Q right now? Is it helping me win the lane? That's a lot to think about, and so you start with the bigger picture stuff. You start with the why am I invading this jungle? Why am I going all in for a play right now? And then as you start to really be able to think those things through and come up with more intelligent responses, I shouldn't be invading right now because we don't have the team for it. I shouldn't be all-inning right now because I don't really have the damage to finish it off for sure. That kind of thing. Then you start moving to the more detailed stuff. Should I be using my abilities right now? Should I go for this kill right now? All of these things. You get nittier and nittier and grittier and grittier, and your play will improve as you are able to do that at a more basic level. And as you get good at this, by the way, it doesn't take very long. It becomes pretty much second nature as you practice and get good at it. You're not constantly running the numbers in your head. You do that a few times, and then it just becomes how you play the game. So your lack of mana hurts you a bit later on here too. And that's because Azir is able to shove this lane faster than you. Even with full mana, he's probably able to shove the lane faster than you, so without any mana, it's really bad. You want to be recalling right now to buy your tier. You want to buy that sucker as soon as possible, and you have more than enough gold. Ideally, you would have gone back before this, but you can't because Azir is shoving the lane in. So you have he's forcing you into a position where you have to choose between going back and getting your item, which you want to get as soon as possible, and losing a bunch of CS to the turret, or delaying your power spike by a significant amount of time. So that's the kind of situation you want to be putting Azir into, not the other way around. And that's why managing your mana bar and thinking ahead to when you need to be going back to buy that tier, should I be really going for a big play right now or a big trade right now if it's going to leave me unable to recall in about 30 seconds when I need to? Again, expected outcomes. Should I be doing this right now? So you end up clearing out the minions under the turret here, and then you recall, if Azir is smart, he shoves this as hard as he possibly can, and you end up losing at least one wave and probably two to the turret before you can get back. And we'll see as this happens here that Azir is not smart. He does not shove. He kind of sits here and freezes the lane for some reason. I'm not sure what he's wanting to do, but he's giving up an opportunity to absolutely crush you in lane here. Okay, skipping forward a little bit here. Graves makes a fascinating set of decisions to allow Lee to kill him. So at the 10-minute mark, you want to be at least at 70 CS. If you don't have 70 CS, it better be because you were roaming and picking up kills or something, which you haven't been doing. So pretty much your CS just needs work. You want to shoot for at least 70 by 10 minutes. 80 is better, 90 is awesome. If you are at 70 CS right now, you have a 11 CS lead on Azir, and that's about 100-150 gold. If you are at 80 CS right now, you have a 20 CS lead on Azir, and that's a kill. That's more than a kill's worth of gold. So you would be one kill up on him without ever having to risk going all in. Work on that CS. It's a really high impact, simple thing. It's like warding. It's really easy to get good enough at farming to be better than almost everyone else in bronze and silver. Between warding and just basic farming mechanics, you can pretty easily climb out of bronze and the bottom of silver just by getting better at those two things and almost nothing else. Okay, moving forward here a little bit. This is just a mistake, or another mistake, in calculating expected outcome. So you opt to stay here. You managed to get out a few seconds ago of a fight that left you really low. You do still have your ult up. You have Ignite. You don't have Flash. Your HP is very low. You do have enough mana to do a full rotation of your spells and everything. But your HP is so low. That's really the problem here. So why do you end up staying? There's really nothing good that can come out of this. Like, best case scenario, maybe Azir screws up and wanders into your grenade and you're able to get off a couple of acid hunters before you die. That's like the best case scenario, unless they all just randomly disconnect and allow you to kill them without fighting back. There's no realistic way that you can actually get a kill here. What's much more likely to happen is that these two people are going to dive you. Nunu and Mundo are very tanky, and Mundo has an ult that is built for diving. They can absolutely get under this turret and kill you before you are able to escape because you don't have Flash. This turret is low, so even if Azir just walks up and kills the turret, you probably won't have time to get away before they are able to kill you. They are absolutely able to kill you, and you are not able to stop them from doing so. This is not a situation where giving up your life will mean anything. It just gives them a kill and a turret instead of just the turret. And that's what ends up happening. They realize that, Mundo flashes forward, and you do ult him, which if you had had more health, probably would have been a great play, but you don't. He just kills you, and then they take the turret. So you just gave them bonus gold. Instead of just giving them the turret, you gave them the turret and a bonus kill. Okay, so here's another decision-making mistake, and this isn't really an Urgot thing as much as it's just a general League of Legends thing. So you are out here farming. This is where you would be farming normally if your turret was still up, but it's not still up. You have to run all the way back here to safety, so that's already risky. If you get in trouble here, you're probably going to die. Maybe you could pull off an ult flash and survive, but that sucks to have to use both of those things defensively. So this is really risky for you to be out here. You also don't have a turret up here, and you don't have a turret up here. When all of your outer turrets are down, that opens up this entire jungle corridor to the enemy team. They can run through there without risking taking turret aggro from anywhere. And you can bet that they're going to want to use that to start killing you guys. They're going to use it to start flanking and moving around and setting up vision. So if you're going to be out here at all with this turret down, but especially with these turrets down, you better have wards on your flanks, because you can bet that they are absolutely going to be trying to sneak through and kill you. And that's exactly what happens. Azir moves in he sneaks in through your jungle, jumps over the wall, ults you, Mundo chases you down, and you die because you have to run too far to get to safety. Okay, so as the game winds down here, I just want to talk about a couple of general things. First of all, Graves is busted on this patch. So the fact that he goes nuts and is really hard to deal with is not very surprising, and it's not really your fault. When games like that happen, where you have something that's really outside of your control and you can't, and the game is very difficult to win. You have to just double down on self-improvement. Figure out things that you can work on personally so that even if you lose the game, the next time you queue up, you've improved at something meaningful and are more likely to win the next game. So make yourself some CSing goals, some warding goals, something, so that you are still improving at League of Legends even when you lose a game. So as far as your playing Urgot goes, Urgot really needs an early gold advantage to stay effective throughout the game. It's not enough to just go even in CS with your lane opponent, and that's kind of what ends up happening here. You go even with Azir, and it's not enough. You are never able to be super impactful in this game. You either need to kill him, crush him in CS, or find another way to get a meaningful gold lead. If you aren't able to do that, you're going to find yourself feeling pretty useless throughout the game. As far as your build goes, Tier is a good first item to buy. But after that, try rushing a Black Cleaver, a Ghostblade, or maybe a Mauve Malmortius, depending on the matchup. Once you've got one of those items, then complete the tier into Man Immune. And after that, continue on with your build. Black Cleaver, Ghostblade, Mauve Malmortius, Frozen Heart, Banshee's Veil, and the last Whisper item, matchup depending, are all strong on Urgot. For boots, look to go Ninja Tabby or Mercs, depending on the matchup. Or CDR boots, I guess, if you're crushing. You opt to rush Executioner's Calling in this game, and I think that's a mistake. You have Ignite, which applies the Grievous Wounds, and I'm assuming that you bought that as a counter to Mundo. The only person on their team, really, that you need the Ignite for most of the game until it gets super late and people are starting to crank out a lot of lifesteal is pretty much Mundo with his ult. That's the only person you need it against. And you only need it against Mundo, really, when his ult is ticking. And for that situation, Ignite is going to be enough to cover almost every situation in which you want to apply Grievous Wounds to him for most of the game. You want to get an Executioner's Calling eventually, but rushing it is kind of hurting you because it's delaying your actual damage items. This doesn't give you meaningful damage stats. If you had rushed a Black Cleaver here or a Ghostblade or something, in addition to the Man Immune, you would be in a much better position to start doing damage, and then you build the Executioner's Calling later. So lean on the Grievous Wounds you get from Ignite, delay the Executioner's Calling until you're ready to build your last Whisper item, maybe 4th or 5th. So once again, I'm Hideous E. Thanks for the chance to work with you on this game. I hope it's helpful, and best of luck!